Welcome back viewers. In today's video, we are going to bring before you all the information and official statements about the newly revealed Game of Thrones prequel. Possibly and hopefully, we have gathered all the things you need to know. We are just 6 episodes away from the end of Game of Thrones as we know it, but the good news is we are about to get more stories from Westeros. While one Game of Thrones chapter is closing, another may be opening. Game of Thrones actors have been bidding farewell to their beloved characters as filming for the 8th and final season wrapped over the past month. But fans are optimistic about a prequel to hit HBO show, which is reportedly set to film in Northern Ireland in October. According to the Belfast Telegraph, filming for the new show will take place at Paint House Studios in Belfast, where the original Game of Thrones series was shot. Thrones author George R.R. Martin wrote about HBO moving forward with a plot order in a blog post. To clarify, what we have here is a pilot order, not as yet a series order, though of course we are all hoping that will follow. Unfortunately, Game of Thrones fans will still have to say goodbye to their favorite characters. Martin said no one from the original cast will appear in the new show, which will predate their word by thousands of years. HBO has announced that the first of the 5 prospective Game of Thrones prequel spin-offs to get a pilot order will go way back into Westeros' past to a time period before recorded history where the truth is lost in a fog of legends and myths. Of all the eras worth exploring, it's the one with the most question marks, which is why it makes the most sense for a new story. More than any other period from George Martin's insanely deep and complex history of the Seven Kingdoms, it offers the most freedom to tell a story even the most ardent fans of A Song of Ice and Fire don't already know. Unfortunately, that's exactly why, along with a familiar enemy, it could end up hurting the original show. The official synopsis for the series from HBO is: taking place thousands of years before the events of Game of Thrones, the series chronicles the world's descent from the golden age of heroes into its darkest hour. And only one thing is for sure: from the horrifying secrets of Westeros history to the true origin of the White Walkers, the mysteries of the East to the Starks of legends, it's not the story we think we know. George Martin himself further revealed how much the story will revolve around the infamous invasion of the dead. He thinks the unnamed series should be called The Long Night, suggesting that just like on Game of Thrones, the blue-eyed ice demons will likely be the show's big baddies. But also like with Game of Thrones, there are still tons of other important figures and events from that era which in many ways shaped the Westeros we know today. The Age of Heroes is the time period after the first men and the children of the forest had ended their war with one another and lived in peace. Thought to have taken place 10,000 years ago, though as Martin points out, the Maesters think it was only half as long ago. It features larger-than-life figures like Bran the Builder, the founder of House Stark credited with building the wall, Winterfell and Storm's End, as well as Lann the Clever, founder of House Lannister, and those are just the most well-known figures for Game of Thrones viewers, who might not be as familiar with other important historical figures, real or legend, like Garth Greenhand and Duron Godsgrief, not to mention the founding of the Night's Watch. While the generally accepted timeline of Westeros put the Age of Heroes at 10,000 years ago, until the start of the Long Night roughly 2,000 years later, the timeline is completely unreliable. Recorded history did not begin in Westeros until long after the first Long Night, when the Andals invaded from Essos anywhere between 6 and 2,000 years before the events of Game of Thrones. A compacted, accurate time period would make for a much more exciting show because it would create far more overlap with these hugely important historical figures and events. Maybe Bran the Builder really was just one person who did all of these things, and maybe he knew all the other great heroes including Azor Ahai, who might have also been the original prince that was promised, the last hero who is credited with leading the first men to victory over the Night King. On top of this, the new show seems like it will have in some form the exact same main villain as Game of Thrones. With the White Walkers playing a major role, it is possible the Night King might have been an important member of House Stark, or someone even more shocking, and that the beginning of the White Walkers story could be far more fascinating than their end, which we will presumably get one way or another with Game of Thrones. But either way, their mere presence will only invite comparisons to the original show, which could unfairly hurt it in the eyes of viewers. None of this means this series won't work or that the show won't actually enhance how we view Game of Thrones if its answers add new depth to original story. The Age of Heroes and The First Long Night offer a bounty of incredible possibilities for an amazing story full of fascinating characters, fantastic elements and major events because what we know about that time period is made of sand that can be molded into something great. That was all about our today's video. If there is any information that we have missed, let us know in the comment section below. Hope you guys liked the video. Do not forget to subscribe and also you can give us suggestions for our next video. Thanks for watching and stay tuned to our channel for more Game of Thrones videos.